An inquiry?
But it won't amount to much. Those things never do. The public forgets.
Public?
Here's a man who never did anything casually. Stanley Kubrick didn't just watch movies, he dissected them. He studied them frame by frame the way a surgeon studies anatomy. And when Kubrick said he loved a film, that meant something. This wasn't some director rattling off titles to sound smart in an interview. This was a guy who had seen more films than most film school professors and had opinions sharp enough to cut glass. These are the 20 films Stanley Kubrick called his favorites and why they mattered to one of the greatest directors who ever lived. Hi, my name is Jeffrey, and this is Old School Movies. Number 20. The Bicycle Thief, the 1948. Vittorio De Sica shot this thing on the streets of post-war Rome, using mostly non-professional actors and a budget that would barely cover craft services on a modern Hollywood production. And yet it hits harder than movies that cost 100 times more. A man and his son searching Rome for a stolen bicycle. That's the whole movie. And it's devastating. Kubrick talked about neorealism constantly, and De Sica was the master of it. What he took from this film was the idea that reality itself, unfiltered, unglamorized, is dramatic enough. You don't need to manufacture tension if you put a camera in front of something true. Kubrick would go on to build some of the most elaborately controlled sets in film history. But he never forgot this lesson. Sometimes the most powerful image is the simplest one. Number 19, Citizen Kane, 1941. Yeah, I know. Everyone puts Citizen Kane on their list. But here's the thing. When Kubrick put it on his list, he was being serious in a way that most people aren't. He wasn't just paying respects to the sacred cow of cinema history. He was pointing at specific things. The deep focus photography, the non-linear structure, the way Wells used the camera as an expressive tool rather than a passive recording device. Kubrick once said that what Wells understood was that film grammar didn't have rules. It had possibilities. And that idea sits at the heart of everything Kubrick ever made. Also, it's worth noting that Kubrick was a teenager when Kane came out, and it apparently hit him like a freight train. Some movies just find you at the right time. This was that movie for him.
Speaking of attractions, well, the chorus girls are certainly an attraction.
Number 18, I, Vitelloni, 1953. This one surprises people. It's Fellini, but it's early Fellini, before the dreams and the circuses and the surrealism took over completely. I, Vitelloni is about a group of young men drifting through a small Italian coastal town, with no ambition and no real plan for their lives. It's melancholy and funny at the same time, which is a hard combination to pull off. Kubrick connected with the character study elements here. These aren't heroes, they're not villains, they're just people, recognizable, flawed, a little pathetic in the way most people are, a little pathetic if you look closely enough. Kubrick spent his whole career building characters like that. Think of the officers in Paths of Glory or the astronauts in 2001. There's always that layer of human smallness underneath the grand circumstances. Number 17, Wild Strawberries, 1957. Ingmar Bergman made this the same year Kubrick was making Paths of Glory. Two directors at the peak of their powers, on opposite sides of the world, making completely different films about time and memory and what a life adds up to. Kubrick was a huge Bergman admirer, and Wild Strawberries was the one he kept coming back to. An elderly professor travels across Sweden to receive an honorary degree, and along the way, he confronts the choices he made, the people he hurt, the love he let go. Cold. It sounds quiet, and it is quiet. But it's the kind of quiet that gets louder the more you sit with it. Kubrick was obsessed with the passage of time in his own work. Barry Lyndon is basically a meditation on exactly that. And you can trace a direct line from Bergman's work right to that film. Number 16, Greed, 1924. Okay, now we're getting into the genuinely wild territory. Erich von Stroheim shot this adaptation of Frank Norris's novel McTeague as a 10-hour film. 10 hours. The studio took it away from him and cut it down to roughly 2.5. The original full cut no longer exists, and film historians still lose sleep over that fact. What remains is extraordinary, brutal, obsessive, almost deranged in its ambition. Kubrick loved this film precisely because of the obsession behind it. Von Stroheim was the original perfectionist madman of cinema, the guy who literally could not stop himself from pursuing his vision even when it was destroying him professionally. Sound familiar? Kubrick saw a kindred spirit here. He understood what it meant to be consumed by a film, to chase something in the work that most people around you couldn't even see. Barry Lyndon nearly broke his crew. The Shining nearly broke Shelley Duvall. The obsession was always the point. Number 15, City Lights, 1931. Chaplin made this film in 1931, which is worth thinking about for a second. Sound had been in movies for 4 years by that point. Everyone had switched over, and Chaplin just didn't care. He made a silent film anyway because he believed the story he was telling required silence to work. That kind of conviction, the willingness to do the thing that makes sense for the film, even when the whole industry is pointing in the other direction. That's exactly the kind of thinking Kubrick respected. And City Lights is a masterpiece. The story of the tramp falling for a blind flower girl who thinks he's a millionaire. The ending of this film is one of the most purely cinematic moments ever put on screen. Kubrick referenced Chaplin often when talking about physical performance and how much a body can communicate without words. Watch Tom Cruise in Eyes Wide Shut sometime and think about that. Number 14, Henry V, 1944. Laurence Olivier directing himself as the King of England on a wartime budget, using theatrical staging mixed with genuine cinematic ambition. This one's on the list partly because of the battle sequence at Agincourt, which Kubrick absolutely studied. The way Olivier builds that sequence, the long stillness before the charge, the chaos that follows. You can feel the influence on the charge of the Light Brigade in Barry Lyndon. Kubrick didn't copy it, he absorbed it and made it his own. That's what great directors do. Number 13, La Strada, 1954, back to Fellini. If I, Vitelloni, is Fellini the realist, then La Strada is Fellini the poet. Anthony Quinn plays a brutish strongman who buys a simple-minded young woman to be his assistant and companion. What follows is one of the most heartbreaking films ever made. Giulietta Messina's performance as Gelsomina is something you don't forget easily. I'm warning you now, do not watch this on a night when you're already in a fragile state. You will not recover quickly. Kubrick talked about La Strada in terms of emotional authenticity. The film never tells you how to feel. It just shows you these two damaged people and lets you draw your own conclusions. That restraint, the refusal to editorialize, became one of Kubrick's signatures. Think about the ending of 2001. He trusted the audience to sit with something they didn't fully understand and feel it anyway. Number 12, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, 1948, John Huston, directing Humphrey Bogart as a man being slowly consumed by greed in the mountains of Mexico. This is one of the great psychological westerns, and it's also one of the great performances in Hollywood history. Bogart plays against type so hard here that it's almost uncomfortable to watch, which is exactly the point. Kubrick loved what Huston did with Fred C. O's Dobbs. The character doesn't snap all at once. He slides. Slowly, scene by scene, you watch a man lose himself to paranoia and obsession, and the film never softens it or offers an easy explanation. Kubrick pulled the same trick with Jack Torrance in The Shining. That slow deterioration, that's straight out of the Huston playbook. Number 11, Roxy Hart, 1942. This one always gets a double take when people see it on the list. Roxy Hart, 1942, directed by William Wellman. It's a screwball courtroom comedy about a woman who confesses to a murder she didn't commit because she figures the publicity will make her famous. It's sharp and cynical and funny in a way that feels about 40 years ahead of its time. If you squint, you can see the DNA of Chicago in here. Kubrick had a sharp sense of humor that most people miss because his films are so serious on the surface. But Dr. Strangelove exists. Full Metal Jacket has that dark comedy underneath the horror, and Roxy Hart is a reminder that he loved films that found the joke in human vanity and stupidity, which honestly is most human behavior if you think about it long enough. On number 10, The Maltese Falcon, 1941. Houston again. The man shows up twice on this list, which tells you something about how much Kubrick respected him. The Maltese Falcon is the film that basically invented the modern American crime film. Tight, cynical, brilliantly constructed. Every scene earns its place. There's no fat on this thing anywhere. What Kubrick took from it was structural discipline. Houston never wastes a frame. Every shot has a purpose. Every line of dialogue either reveals character or advances the story, or ideally both at the same time. Kubrick's editing was always precise in the same way. People talk about the beauty of his images, but the discipline underneath them is just as impressive. Number 9, I Am a Fugitive from a Chain Gang, 1932. Paul Muni plays a World War I veteran who can't get his life back on track after the war, gets arrested for a crime he didn't commit, ends up on a chain gang, escapes, builds a respectable life, gets pulled back in. It's relentless and it's angry in a way that Hollywood films of that era almost never were. This thing was practically activism disguised as entertainment. Kubrick was drawn to films that had something to say about systems, about institutions that grind people down. It's there in Paths of Glory, in Full Metal Jacket, in A Clockwork Orange. This film from 1932 is one of the earliest examples of that kind of systemic critique in American cinema, and Kubrick clearly never forgot it. Number 8, Singin' in the Rain, 1952. Look, even Kubrick needed a film that just made him happy. Singin' in the Rain is one of the most purely joyful films ever made, a musical comedy about the chaotic transition from silent films to sound in Hollywood. Gene Kelly, Donald O'Connor, Debbie Reynolds. The title sequence alone is worth the price of admission. But here's the interesting part. Kubrick didn't just love this as entertainment. He studied it technically. The choreography, the camera movement, the way the musical numbers are staged so that the camera is always in the exact right place at the exact right moment. That kind of precision disguised as spontaneity was something he actively pursued in his own work. Nothing in a Kubrick film is accidental, just like this. Number 7, Napoleon, 1927. Abel Gantz's silent epic about Napoleon Bonaparte runs somewhere between 4 and 9 hours, depending on which version you can find. The complete original cut has essentially never been seen in its entirety by anyone alive today. Gantz used 3 cameras simultaneously to create a triptych widescreen image that predates Cinerama by about 25 years. It's technically astonishing for 1927. It's technically astonishing for right now. Kubrick spent years trying to make his own Napoleon film. Years. He did mountains of research. He wrote a screenplay. He came closer than most people realize. It never got made, and that remains one of cinema's great what-ifs. But the reason Napoleon was the project that haunted him for decades starts here with Gantz's film. This is where the obsession took root. Number 6, The General, 1926. Buster Keaton directing and starring in one of the greatest action films ever made. And yes, I said action film, and yes, I mean it. The train chase sequences in this movie are more thrillingly constructed than most modern blockbusters with their $100 million effects budgets. Keaton did everything for real. Everything. A real train, real stunts, real danger. The man was out of his mind in the best possible way. Kubrick revered Keaton's physical commitment and his understanding of how to use space in a frame. Keaton always knew exactly where to stand, in relation to the camera, to make the comedy or the action or both simultaneously work. That's geometry. That's physics. That's the same kind of analytical thinking Kubrick brought to every setup he ever shot. Number 5, Bad Day at Black Rock, 1955. Spencer Tracy arrives in a tiny desert town on a train, one-armed, asking questions about a Japanese-American farmer who disappeared after Pearl Harbor. The whole town wants him gone. This is one of the leanest, most efficient thrillers ever made. 81 minutes and not a single second of it wasted. Kubrick loved the economy here. John Sturges built an entire atmosphere of menace using almost nothing. A sparse landscape, a handful of actors, dialogue that says 3 things at once. The film is about guilt and silence, and the violence that communities use to protect their secrets. That moral weight delivered through pure cinematic efficiency. That's the kind of filmmaking Kubrick was always chasing. Number 4, The Magnificent Ambersons, 1942. Here's where it gets genuinely painful. Orson Welles made this as his follow-up to Citizen Kane, and it might be the greatest American film ever made. Except, we'll never know for certain, because RKO took it away from him, cut 45 minutes out of it, and destroyed the excised footage. Burned it. They literally burned it. Film historians have never fully recovered from this information, and honestly, neither have I. What remains is still extraordinary. The story of a wealthy Midwestern family losing its money and status as the automobile age transforms America. It's about the end of something, the death of a world. And Welles shoots it with this aching, mournful beauty that nothing else from that period quite matches. Kubrick called it one of the most tragic losses in cinema history, both the film that was destroyed and the career that was derailed along with it. He understood what it meant to fight for a vision. He understood what it meant to lose. Number 3, Paths of Glory, 1957. This one is personal because Kubrick directed it, but he included it on lists of films he most admired. Not out of ego, but because he talked about it as the film where he finally figured out who he was as a director. Kirk Douglas plays a French colonel fighting World War I, who is ordered to prosecute 3 of his own soldiers for cowardice after a suicidal attack fails. It's about institutional betrayal. It's about the machinery of power eating the people who serve it. The trench warfare sequences influenced every war film that came after them. The courtroom scenes are as tightly wound as anything in American cinema, and the final scene, where the soldiers watch a frightened German girl sing, is quietly one of the most humane moments in film history. Kubrick was 29 years old when he made this. This is 29. Some directors don't make a film this good in their entire careers. Number 2, The Best Years of Our Lives, 1946. William Wyler directed this just 1 year after the end of World War II, about 3 veterans returning home and trying to figure out how to live normal lives again. It runs nearly 3 hours and earns every minute. Harold Russell, a non-professional actor who had actually lost both hands during the war, won 2 Academy Awards for his performance. 2. They gave him an honorary one because they were afraid he wouldn't win the competitive one, and then he went and won the competitive one anyway. Kubrick talked about this film in terms of emotional honesty. Wyler didn't sentimentalize the veterans. He showed their confusion, their anger, their inability to fit back into lives that had moved on without them. Full Metal Jacket covers some of the same ground 30 years later from a completely different angle. The questions are the same, even if the answers aren't. Number 1, Umberto D., 1952. An elderly retired civil servant in post-war Rome is slowly, quietly being destroyed by poverty. He can't pay his rent. He has no family. The only living creature that needs him is his small dog. That's the film. And it's the most devastating film on this entire list. De Sica again, the same director who made The Bicycle Thief. Kubrick put this at the top of his list and called it the film that demonstrated more purely than any other what cinema was uniquely capable of. The capturing of a human face in a moment of private anguish without artifice, without score manipulation, without any of the machinery of emotion that Hollywood movies rely on. Just a camera and a man and the truth of what it looks like to be old and forgotten and still trying to hold on. Watch the scene where the old man tries and fails to beg for money on the street. He holds out his hand, changes his mind, turns his palm upward to pretend he's checking for rain. It takes about 30 seconds. It will stay with you for 30 years. What this list tells you about Kubrick is that he was always studying humanity at the edge of something. At the edge of poverty, of war, of obsession, of institutional cruelty, of time running out. He wasn't interested in triumphant stories. He was interested in the truth underneath the story people tell themselves about their lives. Every film on this list is precise, disciplined, emotionally serious without being sentimental. And every single one of them is willing to show you something uncomfortable without flinching. If you want to understand how Kubrick made the films he made, i.e. watch these 20, don't rush through them, sit with them. Let them do what they're designed to do. And if you've got a favorite Kubrick film, or a film you think should have been on this list, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you're new here, subscribe. We do this every week, Old films, real stories, no filler. I'm Jeffrey. This is Old School Movies. I'll see you next time.